Sam Sanderson is the general manager of the Construction Association of PEI, whose mission is to foster, promote, and advance the interest and efficiency of the construction industry on PEI, acting on behalf of and for its members. Sam and the Construction Association of PEI is involved in a variety of interesting projects, from building tiny homes in their own training center, dealing with net zero homes and housing, and there are efforts to mirror their programs in other parts of the country, like in Nova Scotia and as far away as Calgary. Just a few days before recording this episode, the association announced a new plan to recruit construction workers to PEI internationally. That's one of many different announcements and projects that Sam is very close to. So he's very much in the thick of things happening, kind of in the big picture with the Construction Association and within the construction world in PEI. Sam is passionate about the industry and what they're doing. From my perspective, I'm hoping to take this opportunity to get a read from Sam about where things are going in the industry, what types of projects we can expect to see more of in the coming years, and generally try and gather information that I can share with my clients and the listeners of this podcast. You're listening to the Chattel Fixtures PEI Real Estate Podcast. I'll take this opportunity to plug my newsletter. Most of my subscribers for my newsletter are PEI homeowners, but I do have a number of builders and developers who take part, and my average open rate is currently above 65%, and I believe that's because it's powerful, exclusive information. If you want to get plugged into my network, there's no better place. Call or text me directly at 902-940, or send me an email at cyrusmacd@gmail.com, and I'll get you connected. And without further ado, welcome Sam Sanderson.
Thanks, David. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I mean, this is such a rich, there's so much for us to talk about. I mean, right now, this morning, you are coming from a big announcement in Summerside. You're right in the thick of things. This is very active. Kind of what is it like in your life right now with all these moving parts and things happening in the industry?
It's a busy time. Yeah. Like every other section and part of construction, the level of demand is greater now than ever before in the history. It's not only the demand for people to get the actual work done, but the procedures and the processes and the tendering and all that stuff that goes along with it as well. There's a lot of that stuff that people don't realize behind the scenes that happens before an apartment building is built or a hospital is built and things like that. So
right, and that's the thing. Like for me, focused on the real estate in terms of mostly people's homes and properties and acreage and that kind of thing. You would deal with projects ranging from major infrastructure projects. I mean, it could be anything. It could be bridges. It could be roads. It could be buildings.
Exactly. CAPEI has over 330 company members. We're kind of have our toe in every aspect of it,
right?
From training to safety to procurement to information-based advocacy on every level of the platform you could possibly think of, locally, regionally, nationally, and now internationally. So there's lots of really great things happening. Prior to COVID. We were fairly focused on just our membership alone in the industry in itself. When COVID came along, we started being a voice, a much bigger voice for industry, and some of our safety procedures and protocols were put in place for everybody in construction. It created a even greater value and even bigger awareness around the association and the things that we offer. Right now, I like to think of myself as a spokesperson for the industry as a whole. Right. Doesn't make any difference which part of the industry you're in. I have members that are home builders. I have members that are, IC&I builders and the commercial contractors. I have members that are row builders and that. So I'd like to, when I have a conversation and talk about construction, I talk about construction as a whole. Right.
Okay, cool. Nice. You actually, this morning you were coming from the announcement of the housing accelerator for Summerside, right?
Cornwall, actually.
Oh, it was for Cornwall, this morning.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So can you tell me about what happened there?
Yeah, no, great announcement for the town of Cornwall. It was $4.3 million to help accelerate, houses and bylaws and make changes for developers and also for, residential to maybe some, small outbuildings and things like that for, homes on existing properties.
Right, the secondary accessory dwellings.
And looking at increasing density as well, adding a couple of more stories to the bylaws. I think in Cornwall right now.
And is that blanket across the entire community?
That's as far as I understand.
Right.
That'll be case by case, but I think, overall the intended goal is to increase the density right across the town of Cornwall.
Right. So this money goes into helping that whole range of things. In what ways does it most directly, most directly affect building? Is it because some of the funds towards helping build infrastructure to get like towards the new subdivisions, things like that? Is that right?
There's a variety of ways that the funding is going to be used.
Okay.
There wasn't a full breakdown of what the potential sources, or the streams that the funding will be used for.
Yeah.
That's yet to come.
Okay.
But the federal government and the municipality is working very diligently on that.
So the idea is to help fund municipalities for them to be able to better serve the outcome of building more housing.
That is one part of it. Yes.
Oh, okay.
As we know, the shortage of people and the ability for communities or municipalities to meet the needs on the development and permitting side has been a challenge.
Yes.
So to help offset some of those costs maybe and hire somebody new maybe.
Right.
So there are multiple avenues for sure that depending on what each municipality needs to make that happen faster.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. I'm sure we could totally dissect that, but there's a lot of different things going on. But to take it back to people to islanders who are living their day by day lives here, what are some opportunities in the construction industry? Specifically, I'm thinking for young people, for builders, and what are the big employment opportunities right now for people? Someone who's maybe because there'd be a lot of people out there that I'm sure are feeling, for example, the pinch of the increased cost of living these days and trying to find their place. And if there's some really great jobs and great work or great opportunities available, it's good for people to know that they're out there. Are you able to highlight some of what's needed right now?
Oh, for sure. As part of our day-to-day activity now, more than ever before, is the ability and the opportunity to bring awareness around opportunities in the construction industry. Let's go back a little bit. We go back to the old PVI days, the Provincial Vocational Institute, that was in the school systems about promoting and giving people the opportunities that weren't going down a business or admin side of things and wanted to get into the trades. There was an option there for them. About 20 years ago, roughly, that facility was closed down and there was really no options for those individuals to go into the trades.
Oh,
for many, many years, the trades was considered a second-class occupation.
Yeah.
You went into the trades when you were not smart enough to go anywhere else.
It's so crazy.
It is. And who'd ever thought we'd be in the position that we are now? The biggest demand is for tradespeople.
Well, and it's like because they're doing things, they're making stuff that we need.
Exactly. and you're 100% correct. And, and not everybody's, meant to be a doctor or a lawyer or a business person or an accountant or whatever it may be.
But even if they want to go and get into something really advanced, I mean, there's no limit to the advancement. There's no career limitations for this. I mean, the scope of this is absolutely insane. I can't think of a single business, in fact, that is a bigger, maybe it's like, okay, maybe it is some kind of, you're dealing with the major consumer products internationally or something, but on a local scale or on a regional scale, when it comes to large projects and people's biggest investments, for example, is their home.
Exactly.
But even when you look at infrastructure, I mean, the cost even to put in a new road it's dramatic. And if you, I was talking to this builder not that long ago, and she was telling me about how she kind of views herself as the software on her project. So this particular builder contracts out a lot of the individual parts of the process. And so she's kind of at her terminal, her workspace, and she's piecing together all these different parts. I mean, you got from permitting to dealing with, you know, whoever's going to be putting in the ICF, if that's where you go down, or whoever, wherever you buy the trusses, and getting everything approved, and then you're dealing with the whole finance aspect of it. This is complicated, multi-layered stuff. And by getting really advanced in that kind of work, you can use like a high level of mathematics, you could use statistics, you could use, there's a lot of interpersonal demands that can come with dealing with all these different suppliers and stuff. So if you want to locally enter into an industry where there's no real cap of how big you could take it. I mean, you could get to the point of you know, you could expand into building high rises, or it's crazy where you can go with something like this. So it's really odd to me that it's viewed this way. And I know there's some of the tasks involved are like, we need someone to lift this thing and move it over here. Or we need someone to but then you could say, if you were the person doing that lifting, you could be like, you know what? It would be more efficient if we did this with some heavy equipment. How much does it cost to get, you know, a backhoe in here? You know? And
that's, you know, some of the things, some of the questions that have been answered over the years. When we look at it, and I've seen it with my own experience in my lifetime, is that, you know what, don't go into the trades. You know, Uncle Joe or your father or whatever it may be, you know, spend his lifetime working in the industry, you know, is now worn out. Their knees are gone. Their back is gone. It was very labor intensive. There are still aspects of the industry that is very labor intensive, but as an industry and people, we've learned to work smarter, not harder. You know, materials change, processes change. We look at, you know, the usage of heavy equipment to move materials around. You know, instead of climbing ladders up 4 stories to do siding and things like that, we now have man lifts. We now have aerial platforms. Things like that certainly reduce the hardship on your physical body.
And probably if there's an aspect of it that does require a lot of hardship in the body, there's probably opportunities there as well.
Definitely.
To, you know, create solutions that then could scale out throughout the industry in other places, or find them from elsewhere and bring them here. Exactly,
and stuff. And you know, we're never going to see an automated world in this this industry. There potentially will be some automation to it, but certainly not to the level of many other sectors. You know, getting back to the importance and you know, the direction and stuff, you know, now we're seeing, you know, some of our individuals that were, you know, reluctant to get into the trades, you know, 10 and 20 years ago, who kind of beat the odds and dove into it hard, are now your developers, are now your large contractors. They have, you know, established quite a base for themselves and have really grown their business beyond expectations. We're seeing 2nd and 3rd generation construction families, you know, now be, you know, interprovincial.
Right.
You know, you look at one of the largest contractors in Canada is PCL. Well, PCL, actually, the founder of PCL actually started at Poole's Corner many years ago, and started the construction company in Poole's Corner, moved out west and stuff, and you know, PCL, Poole's Corner Limited, was the name of the, you know, that's where the name came from. And but
right beside Roseneath and Montague.
Exactly. And very well respected company, and continues to be one of the top 5 largest general contractors in the country. And you know, we're seeing it locally here now. You know, I mean, this morning I had the pleasure of having a conversation with 2 or 3 contractors that are some of our largest contractors that are employing, you know, 20, 40, 50, 100 people in the industry. We need those contractors to build our schools, build our hospitals, and the larger IC&I sector. But even for
can you what is IC&I?
Industrial, commercial, and institutional.
Okay, yep.
So, you know, there's kind of the the IC&I side of things, the industrial, commercial, institutional. Then you have the residential kind of sector. Then you have the road builder, heavy equipment, and heavy civil side of things. But at the end of the day, we're all construction. There are multiple people in the IC&I side that do residential. There are many people in the residential side that do commercial, and vice versa. And they all need the roads and the heavy civil work to do any project today, whether it be residential or commercial. So the importance of everybody working together really creates the overall finished product.
Right.
But the sky's the limit in today's environment. I'm very, very lucky to have a daughter, and my oldest girl and her husband are general contractors. I have 3 granddaughters and stuff, and they're all learning the trades. And they will be very successful in whatever they do. But in today's environment, if you have any drive or desire to get into the trades and pursue a career in the trades, the sky's the limit to really set your own stage on what you want to do with your life. Not only from an employee perspective, but a business owner, an employer, and a developer, and so on and so forth.
Right. I have this. One of the I actually use a kind of a construction metaphor in my own mind when I'm thinking about trust, because in this industry, when you're dealing with big projects like that, there is a tremendous amount of trust involved with these projects, because you want to, if someone says, okay, I can do this and this is what it's going to cost, or we think this is what it's going to cost, if trust is intact, it's insane what can be accomplished.
Oh, for sure.
So we could have 2 people sitting here and say, if I have, not that this is the perfect way of managing this, but say I had the control of the government coffers and you had control and you had management of the ability to do some major infrastructure projects. If I could trust you to say, okay, can you build this $1 billion bridge? And you'd be like, yes, I can.
Yeah.
If trust is intact, that can happen.
Oh, for sure.
Right. So there is, I know I'm going a little off topic here, but when I think about this, I think a lot of people, when they're approaching this sort of thing, say if you have a landowner, they have a parcel and they want to build on it, and they're a little nervous about who to turn to, because especially if they don't have experience. And the one thing that matters in that situation, or the main thing I should say that matters in that situation, is trust. Are you dealing with someone that is going to make sure you're in good hands, that make sure they fulfill their commitment? And that is built, I think, largely from consistency. Someone who's been doing it for a long time, they have a reputation in the community. I don't know, I'm not sure how to frame this into a question, but say if you were talking to someone like that who had a piece of land and they were thinking, I want to build a house here, or say it's before they even have the piece of the land, they say, oh, I want to build a house. But they don't know where to start, where to turn, who to ask. If someone came up to you in that position, what would you do?
Well, I'm very fortunate to have a very extensive list of very skilled and very qualified contractors and sub-trades and stuff. So, one of the things we promote in the industry, no matter what part of this industry we're talking about, the biggest aspect and the biggest key is having a strong foundation. And I don't mean, an ICF foundation or a concrete foundation, is having a strong foundation with what you were just talking about, having that trust, is having a competent builder and having a competent sector to be able to have a discussion with, and know that when you're bringing an idea to the table, that person or people have the experience, have the knowledge and the understanding and the ability to bring that to light. So, if somebody called me, and I do get many calls around, not only am I, looking at building my home or a renovation, also I'm looking at building a commercial building. I'm looking at building a business. And, the first questions, that I ask is, what area, what are you looking at? What kind of size? That gives me a better idea of what contractors I may be looking at to send them to. From there, I will give them, a number of contractors or, the services that they're looking for, to have a discussion with all of them. Because somebody that may suit or meet all my expectations may not be the people that they they really need to work for or work with. And that could be, because of personalities and things like that. Giving that individual the opportunity to meet multiple people certainly creates a much more open and transparent discussion, because now you have the option to pick yourself. Here are 4 reputable contractors or general contractors, all tremendous people that do amazing work. Maybe there's one that maybe from an environmental standpoint that may be a little more focused on net zero energy efficiency that may, catch your attention. Maybe another one may be more focused on the style of building that they're building and stuff. So there are some variables there, and it becomes a little more personal. What may not be suitable for me may be suitable for you, but having a variety to pick from, and I don't mean handing somebody 12 contacts, is, shorten the list a little bit and say, what, here's what I'm hearing. These are good people. I understand. I respect them, have done great work. They're a 40-year-old company. And there is some criteria that, would for me to suggest, that these may be the folks to have that initial discussion with.
Yeah, that's nice. And there's people that do that. I mean, I'm sure you would be aware of this, but not necessarily every listener would be aware of this, that there's people that do that with the realtor as well. I mean, just speaking as a realtor, It's like interviewing multiple. If you're going to sell the biggest investment in your life, there's a lot of people that do choose to interview several different realtors, and then they can be like, compare your marketing approach, their sales approach, their personality. Do you trust them to get the outcome that you want? And I'm sure the same thing applies to almost anyone you're hiring. But okay, so has the province's implementation of the building code helped or hindered development on PEI?
I like to think it helped, and we'll see the help in the future as well. I was very active in the adoption of the National Building Code, setting on the Building Standards Council with the province, representing the industry and stuff. And I think it's tremendously important, because we want to make sure we're getting the same level of construction from tip to tip across PEI. Safety is number one. We want to make sure that everybody's safe, that their electrical is up to code, that the framing is up to code and meeting that standard. So it really comes down to, consumer protection. We want to make sure that, the builder that you're hiring is building to the same standard as the builder that you didn't hire. For that safety reasons, making sure we're comparing apples to apples. We see it and have seen it for many, many years. There are unskilled people out there, and cheaper is not always better. And having a standard code to follow should be giving, that buyer of construction a little more breathing room and understanding that they're getting something that they should be getting, and they should be getting that from most contractors. Right,
understood. And then there's been a variety of changes to permitting, the whole permitting process over the last few years at both the provincial and municipal levels. What changes, if any, do you think would help streamline that process?
Well, I mean, we all of a sudden had huge pressure on the permitting system. Like everybody else, they have a shortage of labor. People retired, people moved around because the opportunity was there. There's certainly challenges. I'm thinking, with the process, there's certain processes that they must go through: a development permit first, and then a building permit afterwards, depending on, what area they're building and whether there's wetlands and, zones there that they're getting too close to, the protective areas and stuff really need to be looked at. So when you bring those into play, and you're all of a sudden short-staffed within, one department or another, has a potential to impact, the time framing. Another big part of that too, which didn't help matters, is the National Building Code came into play. And all of a sudden, developers and contractors had never submitted a permit before. And, they weren't submitting the correct information, and didn't know what they needed to submit. So that ended up creating a bigger backlog. People ended up having to apply 2 or 3 times or making multiple trips in to revise their current permit or their application to meet the needs. So there was an educational side of that. I will be the first to say that we worked with the province and we developed a national building code course. The uptake provincially was very, very poor.
Okay.
You know, we created the opportunity, had funding, you know, to cover, I think, about 60% of the course, and that the uptake was very, very poor. Contractors and had the opportunity to, you know, take an awareness around, you know, the National Building Code training, and then turn around. That would have helped them a little bit in the permitting side and what was required and things like that on the more so in the residential sector and stuff in Part 9 of the code.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the other permit that you didn't mention also was the occupancy permit, right?
The occupancy permit, yes. So that, you know, I mean, as we all know, the occupancy permit comes at the tail end of it. You know, you'd be surprised how many places people were moved into before there was ever an occupancy permit issue because they never had to do it before.
Right.
You know, never had a permit, you know, or inspections. So it was a whole new process. So, you know, once you started throwing those roadblocks in there, created some havoc.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, you know, I mean, in the middle of that, I think it was 2020, was it, that we had, or 20 or 2021 that 2021, I believe it was, that we officially adopted the code, right in the height of COVID.
Yep.
And stuff. So that, you know, created roadblocks. So there was, you know, not to always bring up COVID as an excuse, but it was a contributing component to the slowdown and stuff. And then the demand, you know, was astronomical. You know, if you look at the numbers in 2021, we built about 1,290 new units. Well, that's a big jump on the years prior on the permitting side of things, where many of those units didn't require a permit outside of Charlottetown, Stratford, and Summerside.
Oh, well, exactly. And so, but even at that number, I mean, I would say that significantly trailed population growth over that same period.
Sure.
Yeah.
So again, you know, it was the pressure on the services to get the work done.
Yep.
You know, and it all comes back to, you know, all of a sudden, you know, you've got demand, and, you know, contractors have, you know, not used to applying and, you know, expecting to get a permit in 24 hours or within 3 days or something. You know, when there was already 100 sitting on the corner of the desk, it got to be a backlog, and the pressure and stuff, and just it takes time.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, it's one of those things where you can easily look at either side of the argument for those things, and observe. Is very interesting. There was a CBC interview in 2022 that you mentioned that by 2028, 1/4 of skilled tradespeople would be retiring. Is that still the case? And what is the Construction Association doing to help fill that need?
So that number has changed a wee little bit, not much. If you look at the latest Billforce Canada report, they're speculating by 2030, we're going to lose 22.5% of our workforce.
Okay.
Currently, right now, we're guessing that there's somewheres of 100,000 skilled trades jobs in Canada. You know, so that's a scary number.
Right. So we'd lose 22,000 people. Is that?
So in PEI, you know, in the housing strategy announcement today is speculating there's about 8,000 people employed in the construction industry.
Just on PEI alone.
Just on PEI alone. What's 22.5% of that? It's a little over 2,000 people, or a little under 2,000 people. That's 20. You know, that's a 1 in 4 on every work site. Those numbers are staggering. Not only are we losing the people, we're losing that experience and that knowledge. And that is having a huge impact on, you know, the ability on mentorship and the ability to pass that information on to the younger generation that are coming up through the ranks in the industry. Right.
I mean, you see that not just, like, I would say, you know, if I extend this out a little bit more broadly than what might be kind of in the construction industry, although would renovations be part of the construction industry, right? So even something like a handyman, it's getting harder to find one, right?
It is.
And most of the handyman that I've used through the years were older. Even when you look at, I'm thinking of appliance repair. What was his name?
Harry James.
Harry James, right?
He was the master.
The master, exactly. I remember the first time I had him in maybe it was around 2010 or so. I think he charged me $20 to repair a dryer.
Right.
Now maybe he was just doing a deal or something,
right.
but we had him in subsequently after that for different things, and it was a little bit more reasonable what he was getting. But you look at a lot of those people that have taken on those different roles in the industry, and it doesn't always feel like there's people kind of filling that gap.
Yeah, no, there's not.
Mm-hmm. And part of it I think is cultural too, right? Like changes in our people's expectation of what a career looks like, for example.
For sure. Also a big part of that too is the people that are in the senior roles
Mm-hmm.
are not retiring, when they originally had planned on.
Mm-hmm.
Life changes, there was, many changes in the work world where things got more expensive. Well, maybe I'll stay another 5 years, or maybe I'll go on to something else, from government into private sector, or reverse. So there's more and more drive to maintain that senior person in their current role than there's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
So that
right.
I know people that have retired from 20 years ago, retired from a government position and got into the handyman or the handy person side
Mm-hmm.
of things,
Yeah.
Wanted to do a little bit of deck repair, do a little paint, do a little
Mm-hmm.
yard work just
Yep.
to, supplement their income a
Sure.
little bit and give them something to do.
Yep.
Well, you know what? They're now staying in their current roles till they're 65 or 70.
Mm-hmm.
Or even later in
Mm-hmm.
some aspects.
Yep.
So, that ability to stay in their current roles are now, longer. I mean, I see it every day, and people that have retired in various roles. Well, their retirement, they had the party within 3 months. They're coming back into those roles.
Yep.
In a 3-month term,
Right.
or 6-month term, or a 1-year term, and better conditions than when they left.
And they're giving themselves a little more flexibility.
A little
in
more
their life
flexibility.
as well.
Mm-hmm. I'll come back. I'll only work 30 hours a week.
Yeah, and if they're not happy with how it's going, they're not stuck.
Exactly. Yeah. And stuff. And so there are many more opportunities, in current work environments. Now, getting back to the question you asked about what is CAPEI doing around the labor shortages,
yeah.
and this is very near and dear to our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
and our services. So a number of years ago, one of the, my members started walking through my door and saying, you know what, we need people. Labor is our number one issue.
Mm-hmm.
CAPEI has always been doing a youth and trades program. We've been doing it for like 35 years, long before my time. Working with youth at risk or youth with barriers to employment, giving them, helping them get a little bit of employability skills and some life skills, and matching them with a member or non-member to, gain some work experience.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last 5 years, we've certainly expanded on that substantially. As you mentioned in the intro, we've built our own training center.
Mm-hmm.
And in that training center, we've started, we started out building picnic tables and utility sheds and things. And now we've converted over to, the net zero energy efficient tiny homes.
Mm-hmm.
And we're working with, many other underrepresented groups, more youth with barriers. We started working with the province, doing a Discover Carpentry program that fully focuses on carpentry. At the same time building tiny homes. So, we're working with our members and industry people to create more and more opportunities and availability on a career in the trades. And that continues to grow every day. A couple of years ago, we had the opportunity to do a foreign credential recognition program with ESDC federally.
What's that?
Yeah, foreign credential recognition program is working with highly skilled newcomers.
But ESD,
employment development. I forget how it's the acronym.
Is the acronym for this organization that does this federal department? Okay,
yeah, perfect. So like I say, we've worked with the federal department on our youth engagement strategy for quite a number of years. And then this foreign credential recognition program pilot came up, and we applied for it, and we're very successful. So we worked with 60 newcomers to help them get into the construction industry locally.
Right.
And that was a very good program. And so,
are these people by and large mostly still in the industry?
There's a number of them still in the industry.
Yeah.
Many of the newcomers that came into the programming are very highly skilled. Architects, engineers, project managers, senior officials within, multiple corporations and things like that, you couldn't give them enough knowledge. They cannot learn enough.
Right. Yeah.
And, some of them have gone on to project managers with many large contractors here in PEI. A few of them have gone to large contractors and industry in other jurisdictions. Some have gone on with architectural and engineering firms here in PEI and Atlantic Canada. So it was very, very successful. And then, so in 2023 or 2022, we put 93 people through our training center.
Oh, wow.
That were new people into the industry here in PEI.
Okay. Yeah.
Our numbers are roughly about the same for 2023. We're looking at to expand that. Now we're, anytime we can work with any groups to get more people into the industry, to bring, the employability side of things, we're giving them or helping them develop more entry-level positions. Is a huge tool and has been very, very successful on many platforms.
And how can people find out about these programs if they want to participate?
Yeah, jump onto our social media, our website, or our Facebook page, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter.
And you'll make announcements about these things, and there's places for them to go and apply for these programs, or sign up, or
perfect, exactly.
Or they can give you a call, or send an email,
whatever,
or something.
An email.
Let them know they're interested.
For sure. Yeah. No, typically what we do is we advertise that we're having an information session for the programs. We work with the settlement agencies, URSA and the PEI connectors and various other groups, career development services and others, to let them know about the opportunities.
Okay. Yeah.
Most of our information sessions will gather 50 to 75 people.
Okay.
To look at a pathway into construction.
Okay, so you'll sometimes do information sessions for pathways into construction.
Exactly.
People can go to these, they can learn, they can connect, they can network, and they can maybe help find their place, or at least a place to get started.
Yeah. No. Exactly, and stuff. And then we also have, we have an HR advisor on staff to work for our members. That we're collecting resumes on a daily basis. We have our Island Builder job site platform, islandbuilder.ca, where all construction jobs are pretty well on, and provincially and stuff. So if you're looking for a job in construction, go to islandbuilder.ca.
Islandbuilder.ca.
And call the office, and we've got huge resources there to connect you with potential employers. Knock on our door if you have an interest in construction. We want to talk to you.
Nice.
No matter what your age, demographics, gender. If you have the interest, we want to have that conversation with you.
Fantastic. So after the big interest rate hikes, especially in kind of the later part of 2022, say April, May 22, they started going up rapidly. It was, maybe one of the fastest interest rate increases ever in that period of time. What effect did that have on the construction industry?
That certainly had an impact. I would be a liar if I said it didn't. But the simple fact is it kind of put the brakes on in some sectors and some parts of the industry. People kind of held back a little bit to see what the next step would be. Like you said, it was unprecedented rate increases. People were at a little bit of uncertainty. The volume of people, on the residential side that qualified for a mortgage now diminished substantially. And some of the commercial builders and stuff kind of held off a little bit as well, because you had multiple things happening there at once. You had, increased interest rates, the ability to be profitable with the added cost of construction, and then, with some rent cap issues and things like that, certainly
put the fear,
put a little bit of fear into people,
and change the underlying metrics as well.
Oh, exactly.
Because if you look at, say, if you're investing in something like this, your eventual, say, your cash flow numbers change for the investment. Your there's a lot of things under the hood that change with something like that.
For sure. Will we, I mean, there's, just, I think it was yesterday I heard on CBC, there was some real estate folks talking about, there not much has changed in the local market. The sales have stayed relatively steady. The prices have stayed relatively steady. And that's an amazing sign. And, I think we're going to see some interest rates drop a little bit in later 2024. People are already starting to talk about building. We're seeing more and more commercial talk and discussion. Some of the projects that are, kind of being proposed in the housing, commercial housing side of things is really astronomical. And there's going to be tremendously important to the success of PEI in many sectors. There's a number of very large housing initiatives out there at play right now, excluding, in the private world. PEI is still, a great spot to invest. It's a great spot to build. We still have relatively, lower housing costs in PEI than many other jurisdictions in Canada. So there's still a fair bit of positivity. Our growth continues.
What do you see? Okay, where do you see this going in terms of the types of construction projects? Because you were saying you're hearing of a lot of things coming down the pipeline right now. What say over the next 5 years or so? Because I mean, the construction industry, we're dealing with. I'm sure you're having conversations that'll affect 2025, 2026, and beyond right now. So what do you see over the next few years? What types of projects do you expect more of to come in? Do you see any kind of trends emerging right now from these conversations, from looking out?
Yeah, from the conversations that I've personally been involved in, and PEI is famous for its rumors, but there's a lot of large scale projects. We're looking at apartments density and stuff. When you look at the residential side, there's a lot of talk around the tiny home sector. Smaller is better. When you look at it at the end of the day, how much of our population can afford 2,500 to 3,000 square feet? Oof. I know I can't.
Yeah.
And are we? We go back and look where we were a number of years ago, that 900 or 1,000 foot bungalow raised a lot of families in this province and in this country. There's a lot of talk about going back to wartime efforts. What we did in the housing, in many of the larger jurisdictions, smaller is better to a degree. Has the potential to meet the needs? I think it does. Because if I didn't think that, I wouldn't be building tiny homes in my training center. And I would probably think I would have probably 400 or 500 messages of people asking, can I buy one? Can I get on the list to buy one? We talk about density. Do we have the availability to create smaller lots in a community and put 3 houses or 5 houses on your traditional building lot size? Well, the rules around that,
when you look at a lot of these kind of blanket regulations that come into effect, it's like, say, if you're in the country, if you don't have municipal water and sewer, then you need quite a bit of space for septic system. Depending on after the perk test, whether it's category 1, category 2, you need a different circle around the septic. Right. The lot size outside of municipal boundaries tends to be pretty large, the requirements for that. And I can't imagine selling someone a 1 acre lot and they, put a, 400 square foot right in the middle of it. I mean, maybe if it's in the middle of the country, in the middle of the woods or something where the price is lower. And if you are looking for some lower cost lots in the country, they do exist. And I could put you in touch with some people. Yeah. But how do you even solve that? Like, is there, can you have multiple tiny homes being serviced by the same septic system, for example? Can you have, do the regulations allow for this sort of development? And if not, what can we do to remove barriers for that?
I'm a firm believer we can make anything happen.
Yeah.
If you've got if you're putting a system in for a 4-bedroom home,
yeah,
to meet the requirements, and I'm not sure what those requirements are, but I go back to a few years ago. The last septic system I put in was based on bedrooms. If you're putting a 4-bedroom system in to meet the needs of a single family dwelling, why can't you put in that same 4-bedroom system to meet the needs of 4 one-bedroom tiny homes.
Yeah.
That creates housing for 4 individuals or 4 young couples or whatever it may be on that one lot, or maybe even more. You're not digging a foundation for them. You could, but typically you're probably not. That individual, whether you rent them or sell them, look at the mini home parks that are around our communities. If you're investing to build a lot, you want to put your own tiny home on it. You rent the lot, that your friend or somebody wants to put a tiny home on it beside you. You rent them the lot for $50 a month.
Right. Well, exactly.
Helps offset your costs and stuff, and they own the home on it. They're building a little bit of equity. Comes a time that they want to expand and that. Well, you know what, they sell it and either A, move it off the lot, or B, rent it to the next person that comes along.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's not all the lenders like to work with rented lots, but there's some that do.
Yeah. Sure.
And often, when they're dealing with a mini home or something, they'll treat it like a chattel. Like I know for example, RBC, and I'm not meaning to plug anybody specifically. I just know that they've been able to get those types of deals done for me. So
yeah, no, for sure. And I've had, when we first launched our tiny home initiative, I actually had conversations with multiple financial companies, and they were looking at, how do we reduce the square footage on what we can put a mortgage on and stuff. And today's environment, the person or the group that turns around and thinks outside that box and comes up with an alternative process, financing capacity and stuff, they're going to be the winners, because all of a sudden you're creating density, you're creating a more viable option for the younger generation and the older generation. I look at it, the older generation are looking to downsize and stuff. You know what, it's cheaper for them, many of them, to stay in their current home than it is to downsize.
Yep.
So where's the value in that? They don't have the capacity to to maintain and clean and whatever else it may be to that 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom home. If they had the option to move in into a small little community with 20 tiny homes and they're all seniors or retired,
maybe,
or whatever,
maybe slab on grade and
exactly
and easier to kind of get in and out of, and maybe walk-in shower and.
Yeah, no, that's right.
I think that's an interesting point too about the housing stock reflecting the population and the way that housing, once in place, it's doesn't move very easily, and there's often when we're having these conversations about housing, it's so challenging because one of the sides, we in the kind of like where we're dealing with people building or people moving or getting in and out of houses, we're often thinking about increasing the stock and how do we make sure that we supply the supply side, work on the supply side, but there's always these community effects too, right? So
for sure.
It's like the nature of communities, it's changed in a lot of ways here. I mean, PEI is increasingly more people moving into Charlottetown and more density in Charlottetown and less in rural, but it is interesting because I think say the tiny home, you got, somebody who says, okay, you know what, next door, they're going to put in a whole bunch of little tiny homes right there. Well, that could change the character of that community and that kind of thing too. So, I mean, that's a kind of a bigger topic that's kind of hard to get dialed in. Yeah.
We have a huge case of NIMBYism here. Not in my backyard thought process and stuff. And you know what, I look at myself and I have no problem talking about myself and stuff. I've got a 4-bedroom Cape Cod. There's 2 of us.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
Yeah.
But it's cheaper for me to stay where I'm at than to downsize. Who'd ever thought 10 years ago that a 3-bedroom mini home down by the French school would be on the market now for $220,000.
Right.
Who would ever thought, but we have to create more and more opportunity. The garden sheds, the tiny homes and stuff is creating, new neighborhoods. We talk about having the availability. My parents said, and most of our parents probably said, you know what, I feel bad for you because you're never going to be able to afford a home. You're never going to be able to do this. Things are changing, but you know what? We survived. Yeah. And we bought where we could. We just need to look at having the option to buy something different.
Right.
Not only do we have that 3,000 square foot home, but we also have the 2 new vehicles in the driveway. We also have, every every little bit of entertainment we can possibly have. And, you know, I'm not going to give up my, my membership, for YouTube, you know, to help offset the costs of whatever. Eh?
Right. Yeah. Oh man, it's just all these different forces though. I mean, it's like I have, you know, just kind of growing up where I did. So I grew up just outside of Montague for people out there, they know the Robertson Road, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so we had, you know, my parents still live in that house that I grew up in. And, you know, we had, you know, a bigger lot and it was right on the water and it was kind of, you knew the people around you. Yep. You know, you knew the neighborhood. You knew, you know, you'd go into town and you'd bump into someone you knew and you could have a conversation. And that sense of community, I mean, that's powerful stuff. And I think that, you know, I think like you know, I often kind of go in fits and starts of like agreeing with this kind of NIMBY concern also, but I also don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater with this idea of like us having communities that, you know, just make sense and that people know each other. And I don't know, like maybe that's
kind of like going into Cheers. You know,
sure,
kind of going in where everybody knows your name.
Knows your names. Absolutely, that means something, right?
Oh,
it means something.
And I grew up in rural PEI as well, and where, you know, everybody knew everything about you and stuff, and you know, the world is changing. Yeah. And there's always going to be those small corners of every area or every province or every city that continues to have that. But, you know, we look at, you know, today we're living longer. Yeah. You know, our health is changing. You know, many are living longer. The lifespan has you know, been extended. When you look at that, you know, last couple of days, Statistics Canada, we're talking about, you know, the baby boomers are no longer the sector, or, you know, really the one largest demographic. Mm-hmm. You know, the millennials are, you know, but look at the volume of baby boomers that are, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years, they're going to need healthcare, that are going to need many other services, long-term care and things like that. Mm-hmm. We need the infrastructure. We need the people to be able to provide those services for us. Right. You know, and one of the things I've said, and I continue to say it, 40 years ago, we had 3.7 children per household.
Bro, what do we have less than 2 now, probably?
We have 1.2 now.
Oh, geez, wow.
It now takes 1.6 people to do the same amount of work one person did 5 years ago.
Just because of the amount of work-life
balance and things like that. Mm-hmm. You know, prior to my role at the association, I was in the demolition industry. Mm-hmm. You know, you could very easily find people that would work night and day. It would be very easy to find people that work weekends and things like that. You can't do that today. Right. You're hard pressed to find somebody that wants to work 40 hours a week. Mm-hmm. You know, so and it's not a bad thing in any way, shape, and form.
But it's different.
It's different. It's different than what we were used to or what we've been used to now. Mm-hmm. So, you know, whether you're a carpenter or healthcare or whatever it may be, you know, you want that work-life balance. You know, I missed a lot of things in my daughter's lives because I had to work or needed to work to make ends meet. And, you know, I grew up and if I wanted the extras, I worked 45 or 50 hours a week in one job. Right. If I wanted the extras, I worked part-time in another job to make sure to pay for those extras.
Right. So what you're describing is also, I mean, on an individual case-by-case basis, it makes sense that people would want greater work-life balance, and everybody wants what they want, right? Right. But you're also describing a decrease in productivity. Exactly. And so when you have a decrease in productivity across a population, that means, you know, your gross domestic product, for example, on a per capita basis is going to be lower. Yeah. And that means that the amount of productivity each individual on average is producing is reduced. Yeah. And that means that there is less being made. There's less stuff being made. Yeah. And when you have less stuff being made, you have less stuff.
Exactly.
And so that you see changes like this happen in populations over the long term. Mm-hmm. And you see different influencing factors coming in to change this. But if you have that trend continue of decreased productivity on a per capita basis, you're going to end up with less stuff and things are going to cost more on a per person basis.
Sure.
So, I mean, I guess to spin this into a positive, that means that if you are willing to work, and that doesn't mean necessarily just working harder all the time. That can mean figuring out how to increase your skills so that you can use more, say, heavy equipment to get multiples of what your work done, increase the size of your machinery, invest in critical assets and things that are going to make you more productive and your people more productive. Then you can turn that trend very much in your favor.
Oh, 100%.
Because if you are someone who says, oh, we had this huge vacuum of in terms of productivity and in terms of demand, what an opportunity that is. So my hope with something like this too is people see this and they say, hey, wait a minute. There's stuff to be solved here. I can have a role. I can have a place, a very important place in this community in terms of making sure that, say, these boomers we're talking about, who many of which are retired, and there's a big wave of retirements happening. Wow, there's a huge need.
Tremendous need.
Tremendous
opportunity.
And that means tremendous opportunity.
Oh, sky's the limit.
The sky's the limit. And that means looking at what is needed and filling that. And filling that. And sometimes that means doing something that you didn't think that maybe you were going to be doing. You know, like we talked about tradespeople before. How for a little while it was kind of like, oh, trades, whatever. You know, and I think part of that is, you know, someone whose their knees are all dinged up from because you've been laying flooring for all these years on their knees or whatever. Physical issues, things like that. So there's reasons to be concerned about that. So, but that can be mitigated. That can be dealt with. But you could be missing out on an amazing life by figuring out how to solve this. And then you have put a position in our society because you have earned a place where, as a result of you, people are able to go on living their lives. They're able to get the food they need, their lodging.
No, for sure. So you've now created a better opportunity for yourself. You've now created a better opportunity for your employees. So one of the things we talk about quite regularly now and need to really emphasize on it is the importance of retention. So if I can't spend all my time and all my effort on recruitment. I have to spend equally as much or maybe a little bit more on retention. How do I maintain and keep the current staff that I have at the same time bringing in new staff? It's through innovative thinking and problem solving and increasing productivity, but decreasing the workloads and stuff that is really going to be tremendously valuable. If you have an employee that says, has the opportunity to think outside the box and say, you know what, let's try this. Maybe we can increase our production a little bit by trying something a little bit different that at the end of the day could have the opportunity to reduce our total workload is tremendously valuable. So, I mean, as if you have a little bit of drive and desire today, sky's the limit. You can be anything you want to be. And when you look at, from the employment side of things, no matter what you want to do, every sector is screaming for people. Those with that drive and desire can and will be anything they want to be.
And that consistency too.
Oh, you gotta show up.
You gotta stick with it. You gotta be there.
No, exactly, and stuff. And I mean, again, I'll use myself as an example. I never thought I would ever be in a role that I'm in today. I have that grade 9 education. I've got to where I'm at today by working hard. 2000, I got hurt at work, and I'll be honest with you, I pretty near starved to death. If it wasn't for my aunt sending me a meal every day for months, I would have starved to death. But you know what? I made a commitment to myself. You know what? I'm going to get up on my feet. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to make it better for myself and my family, and I like to think that I have. I'm now, sat on the WCB advisory board and a few other groups and stuff to try and make it better for the industry. How do we get better wages? How do we get better working conditions? But at the same time, we need to get the work done. no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We can't reduce productivity because we're going to continue on creating more and more stress. How do we be part of the solution, not the problem? And that's by thinking and being innovative, but also having the opportunity to do that. That's equally as important. So, you know, again, you know, I mean, wearing many hats in life today is tremendously valuable. It's going to increase our ability, increases our capacity and stuff on many, many different levels. We just need to, you know, how do we do that?
Yeah. Well, on that, is there anything else you want to say?
Well,
before
I mean,
we wrap up.
You know, I could talk for hours on, you know, any one of these subjects and that, but, you know, I mean, there's never been a better time to get into the trades or look at construction. You know, the demand for the industry over the next 10 years is astronomical. We need to build. We need to build. You know, our new motto at CAPEI is now building PEI one day at a time. And that's what we have to continue to do and look towards the future as well, and to be able to do that together. And you know what, it takes many people to build a project. It's not one person or one group. It's a multiple faceted you know, group of people that are coming together to make it happen.
What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Sam@capei.ca is my email.
Wonderful.
My office is 902-368-3303. My cell number is 902-628-5421. I'm on social media, pretty well every aspect of it you can possibly find. And question or comment, please reach out. You know, I'm here to help the industry as a whole.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sam.
My pleasure.